Today we're going to be talking all about Samsung Display's latest QD-OLED technologies and panels for 2025. This is Samsung Display, the panel manufacturer, as opposed to Samsung Electronics as a display manufacturer. These panels are used by loads of different monitor and TV manufacturers. We'll go over what's new in terms of technologies, features and specs for 2025, both in the TV and the monitor space. Make sure you stick around till the end as well, because we're going to focus in on the monitor panels in a lot more detail, running through all of the QD-OLED monitor panels available and planned for the future, and run through the different generations and technologies, as well as some common areas of confusion. Let's start by covering the nomenclature of the new panels. Samsung Display have internally now decided to drop the generation numbers, it seems, despite using Gen 1, 2 and 3 in previous years. Instead, they preferred to label them by year now, so officially, the new panels would be referred to simply as 2025 QD-OLED, for instance. We think that in the monitor space at least, calling them Gen 4 still fits perfectly and makes sense, since they do have distinct new technologies and specs, and there's distinct different panels from previous years. So because this makes things clearer and it fits in with previous years anyway, we will call them Gen 4 when discussing monitors, even if Samsung Display would rather move away from that naming scheme. You may note some monitor manufacturers also use this naming scheme already as well. In the TV panel space, the headline announcement for this year is that the new 2025 panels will be 30% brighter than last year, being able to reach up to a very high 4000 nits peak brightness in HDR for a 3% APL window area. This is made possible by a new advanced panel driving technology and new organic materials, Samsung say. This includes a new EL, or electroluminescence layer, that's EL 3.0 now, which helps improve efficiency by more than 30%, resulting in no increase to power consumption over previous panels and no additional heat generation. That's what allows them to push the peak brightness without any additional risk to burn-in. The last time they updated the EL material was 2 years ago, so this is a significant change this year. They've also introduced a 5-stack OLED structure with 3 blue and 2 green layers, with all layers being deuterium now. Although we're getting into the real nitty-gritty of panel structure that is probably a bit unnecessary here. We mention this only because some display manufacturers specifically talk about a 5-stack structure in their marketing, so that's what they mean there. Samsung told us that this new EL 3.0 panel structure also has significant durability improvements, with around 2 times durability from older generation panels. They even went as far as to say that anecdotally, based on both their own internal long-term testing and feedback from external reviewers and the market, that they have very high levels of faith in the performance of their panels now, and they do not consider image retention or burn-in to be a risk unless you really abuse the panels. That's not something that they're marketing, of course, but they have told various other media outlets, as well as ourselves, the same thing. And it goes to show just how much things have improved in the last few years when it comes to image retention and burn-in. Anyway, not only can these new TV panels reach 4000 nits for peak brightness, but they will also deliver up to 2200 nits for 10% APL, 1100 nits for 25% APL, and 440 nits for 100% full screen white. That's a significant step up from last year's panels. Remember also that QD-OLED is capable of delivering these high luminance figures using an additive RGB approach without the need for a white subpixel boost like competing WOLED panels from the LG Display. That means you get full color saturation and a much higher color volume even in high peak brightness situations. The QD-OLED TV panels will continue to be available in sizes of 55-inch, 65-inch and 77-inch. Unfortunately, there aren't any smaller panel sizes like 42-inch, which could be considered a decent crossover into the monitor market. On the monitor panel side of things, the new Gen 4 2025 panels will also feature their EL 3.0 technology and a 5-stack OLED structure. Samsung Display are now producing 2 new 27-inch size panels for 2025 in the monitor space. The first offers a 3840 by 2160 4K resolution, which is the first time that this high resolution has been available from a consumer high refresh rate 27-inch sized OLED panel. That offers a really high pixel density of 166 ppi, a big step up from the 111 ppi from previous 1440p panels, and higher as well than the 140 ppi from 32-inch 4K panels from last year too. This is made possible through advancements to their Pico inkjet process for QD-OLED panels, now being capable of even higher pixel densities reliably and referred to now as Pico Inkjet Pro. This 27-inch 4K panel has a 240Hz refresh rate, but there's no changes to panel brightness specs, with 1000 nits peak brightness still listed, along with 450 nits for 10% APL and 250 nits for 100% APL. This panel meets the requirements for VESA's Display HDR400 True Black tier, like all previous QD-OLED monitors in fact. So despite the increased pixel density of this panel, they have at least managed to retain the same brightness as last year's 1440p panels, which is thanks to that new EL 3.0 technology. The second new Gen 4 2025 monitor panel from Samsung Display is another 27-inch size panel, this time with a typical 2560 by 1440 resolution like last year's panel of this size. But now it offers a super high refresh rate of 500Hz, a big increase from the 360Hz refresh rate offered from their 2024 version. This is actually the highest refresh rate offered from any OLED panel so far, surpassing the 480Hz offered from LG Display's 27-inch WOLED panel from last year. This is made possible thanks to a new driving circuit that allows increased refresh rates. We did quiz Samsung Display about the possibility of this being used to increase refresh rates on other monitor panels, like for instance their 32-inch 240Hz option, and although there's nothing official from them at this stage, we were told that it was being looked at thanks to this new driving circuit. Interestingly, the new 500Hz QD-OLED monitor panels do offer some improvements in brightness compared with previous monitor panels, thanks to the new EL 3.0 technology and the fact that the pixel density remains the same as last year. Monitors using this 500Hz panel will be the first to be certified under the VESA Display HDR 500 True Black tier, offering a moderate but welcome step up in brightness requirements compared with True Black 400 that is used to certify all current OLED monitors. This includes a higher luminance requirement for 10% APL and 100% APL. If we look at the specs provided by MSI for their monitor featuring this 500Hz panel, we can see some reasonable increases in luminance offered. Although the peak brightness is still 1000 nits, we do expect the improvements for 10% and 100% APL to offer improvements in real-world HDR brightness though, even if the headline peak number remains the same for now. We asked Samsung Display about when we might start to see further improvements in QD-OLED monitor brightness, and we were told that the focus over the last year or so has really been on improving pixel density and resolution for monitor panels. These have much higher pixel densities than TV panels and are also used from a much closer viewing position, so you can't expect monitor panels to offer the same brightness as TV panels. Now that the high pixel densities have been achieved, there are plans to see what can be done to improve brightness, we were told, which will be aided by the new EL 3.0 structure, improvements in power consumption and durability. We expect to see more HDR 500 True Black certified QD-OLED panels over time and further improvements to OLED monitor brightness from there. We saw one model on show at CES in January using this new 500Hz panel, which was the MSI MPG272QR-X50. We've not had a chance to review or test these new 500Hz screens yet, but we should do later in the year when they're released. We also know of one other new QD-OLED panel variation for 2025, and that's a flat 32-inch size panel with the same 3840 by 2160 4K resolution as last year, but now with a lower 120Hz refresh rate instead of 240Hz that was used last year. This spec is already being offered in the forthcoming Dell 32 Plus monitor, announced in early January and expected to be released at the end of March in China and late May elsewhere. As far as we can tell, this is the same 32-inch 4K 240Hz panel from Samsung Display's Gen 3 lineup from last year, just underclocked by Dell to 120Hz for this office-oriented monitor. Perhaps this is to help save money or cost on other components like the scaler perhaps, or perhaps this is to ensure that their new Plus range monitor doesn't cause conflict with their existing Alienware 32-inch 4K 240Hz gaming monitor. This is a monitor aimed primarily at office users, and Samsung Display said that they are confident enough that their QD-OLED panels are now resistant enough to burn-in to be used for more general use applications, including media and even office work. We'll pin a comment below if we get any further updates on this variation of the panel. We should note that the new Gen 4 QD-OLED panels still have the same semi-glossy screen coating of previous generations. There's no change there, although Samsung Display did tell us that they were exploring other coating options with their customers for the future. There's no change to the panel structure that would impact the black depth handling in brighter rooms either, so no changes in that area at this time. But we were told that they were certainly aware of the challenges and actively investigating how things could be improved in the future. Also teased at CES for the future was a prototype 27-inch QD-OLED monitor panel with an even higher 5K resolution. This would offer an even higher pixel density of around 220 ppi, and it's well suited to content creators and designers who need even higher pixel densities. It's also more suited to Mac users where 5K is better supported than 4K, and it would also be considered a Retina resolution alongside Apple's Pro displays. The exact resolution and refresh rate were not provided, but we've asked for more information, so we'll pin a comment below when we have that in more detail. Samsung Display told us that this 5K panel was a proof of concept at this stage, made possible thanks to their new 2025 technologies, especially the Pico Inkjet Pro process, and that there were no firm timelines for availability at this stage. They'll be working with display manufacturers to establish demand, likely based on the uptake of the 4K panel this year. It's likely we think that we'd see this panel enter mass production next year. Let's take a look then at all of Samsung Display's QD-OLED monitor panels produced over the years, breaking them down by generation, specs and technologies. Don't get too hung up on generations too much, especially where some of the technologies aren't changing between the years. Also note that display manufacturers have their own ways of referring to generations, some using the Samsung Display naming scheme, some referring to their own display generations, which makes things a bit confusing. QD-OLED monitor panels first came out in 2022 with their curved 34-inch ultra-wide 175Hz panel, which is used in a range of monitors to date. That was a Gen 1 panel and is actually now end of life and no longer in production. But it was the first venture into the monitor-sized QD-OLED panels. In 2023, Samsung Display produced a curved 49-inch super ultra-wide panel as part of their second generation, which offered a 5120 by 1440 resolution and a choice between a 144Hz or 240Hz refresh rate. Second gen panels included a new hyper-efficient electroluminescence material, also referred to as EL 2.0, which made its blue emitting layer more efficient and clearer. That helped increase brightness on TV panels by 30%. In the monitor market, it didn't signal any improvements to brightness compared with Gen 1, with 1000 nits peak brightness still being the limit. But improvements to lifespan and durability are made possible because of this improved efficiency, leading to reduced power consumption and heat production. In Gen 2 panels, this was combined with their IntelliSense AI 2.0 feature, which also helps improve lifespan and reliability, as well as screen uniformity over time. It does that by optimizing pixel level load and light output intelligently. This again can help with power consumption, and overall Samsung Display stated that their second gen panels were twice as durable as Gen 1 panels. Also officially part of their second gen panels, but a bit of an oddity in this timeline, is an updated 34-inch ultra-wide panel, this time with a 240Hz refresh rate. This is formally part of Samsung Display's second gen of QD-OLED panels, but it was actually produced in 2024 alongside their Gen 3 panels. That does make it a bit confusing, but Samsung Display consider it part of Gen 2, and it also includes then the same hyper-efficient EL and IntelliSense AI 2.0 technologies as their 49-inch panel. That helps improve the lifespan and durability, and of course it also has a higher refresh rate than the older 175Hz panel from Gen 1. We'll talk about pixel layouts separately in a moment for all of these panels, by the way, as that's not actually tied to generations. In 2024, Samsung Display released their Gen 3 panels, offering two mainstream and very popular sizes options for the first time. This included a 31.5-inch, or commonly referred to as 32-inch size panel, with a 3840 by 2160 4K resolution and a 240Hz refresh rate. That's been used in loads of monitors to date in the 32-inch segment. Later in the year, they made a 165Hz refresh rate version available. That was adopted in some monitors aimed at lower-end systems and at a lower price point. They also released a 27-inch size panel with a 2560 by 1440 resolution and 360Hz refresh rate, the fastest OLED monitor panel available at the time. Again, later in the year they made a lower 240Hz refresh rate version available for lower cost models. Both of these new Gen 3 panels featured the latest technologies, including a new Pico inkjet printing process which deposits quantum dot ink and allows for 60% more pixels in the same area with a very low error rate. That's the technology then behind making higher pixel densities available, like the 32-inch 4K panel that they introduced in 2024. The other update was their quantum enhancer technology, which uses an AI-powered compensation algorithm that helps improve lifespan and durability. This should help manage and protect uniformity too, and Samsung Display talk about this doubling the durability of their panels again in 2024. The quantum enhancer feature is also linked to the improvements in refresh rate that were possible in the 3rd gen panels. We've already talked earlier about the new Gen 4 panels and technologies for 2025 in detail, with 2 new options being introduced. There's the 27-inch 4K panel with 240Hz refresh rate and the 27-inch 1440p panel with 500Hz refresh rate, now the highest available in the OLED monitor market. A lot of people have asked us whether there will be a Gen 4 32-inch panel update at this time, but there's no information available from Samsung for a new panel in that size at this moment. Then to finish up, as we talked about earlier, we know that there is a 27-inch 5K resolution panel planned for the future, and we're sure that there will be others too. More details on future QD-OLED monitor generations and panels when we get any more information, of course. But we wouldn't expect to see anything until early 2026, probably at CES next year. You can identify the generation of the panel used in any QD-OLED monitor using this summary. So for instance, all of the 27-inch 360Hz QD-OLED monitors that you will find are Gen 3 panels from Samsung Display. Sometimes the display manufacturers might talk about their own monitor generations, which does confuse matters, but this is the definitive list of the underlying panel generations and their associated technologies and specs. We need to also briefly talk about the pixel layout and shape for all of these monitor panels. Confusingly, this is not officially linked to the different generations by Samsung Display, but with the exception of one panel, there is a pattern at least. All QD-OLED monitor panels have a triangular layout of red, blue and green subpixels, but the shape of those subpixels has changed a bit over the time, and that has helped improve text clarity and reduced visible fringing on text. The first Gen 1 34-inch panel had diamond-shaped subpixels, and these panels showed the weakest text clarity. The shape was made more square in Gen 2 panels, and that helped improve text clarity a reasonable amount. The only exception in all of this is that odd 34-inch ultra-wide 240Hz panel that we talked about that's officially part of Gen 2, but that was produced in 2024 alongside their Gen 3 panels, but it actually still has the pixel shape of Gen 1. Confusing, we know, but that's the only oddity so far. The panels produced since Gen 3 have kept the squarer subpixel shape, although the size of the green subpixel especially has changed a little bit. This remains similar in text clarity to the 49-inch Gen 2 panel, but where it's combined with the higher pixel density of the 4K panels, this really helps improve text clarity further. The higher the pixel density, the better the text clarity has become. So there you go, that's a look at Samsung Display's QD-OLED updates and improvements for 2025, as well as a deep dive into all of the monitor panels, specs and generations over the years. If you'd like to help support the content that we produce at TFT Central, you can find links to our Patreon below, where you can also get various benefits like early access to new reviews and articles. Let us know in the comments section below if you're thinking of buying a QD-OLED monitor this year, or what you're most excited about in the OLED monitor market right now. Thank you for watching. We'll catch you next time.